नैष्टिकम्
ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथानिदं त्वं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललितां श्रीविशाखानिधांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पदे गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरूपस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. We'll also recite the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yadonyadadidaraschatve Sabhijnaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Mukhyandhiya Suryaha Tejo Vari Mudayada Vinimayo Yatra Sargo Avrusha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastaguham Satyam Param Dhimahi. Translation. O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destructions of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining today. So let's go to the class. Today's verse. Today's verse we are covering Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, third chapter, 15th verse, and this chapter is titled as Lord's pastimes outside of Vrindavan. So if you can repeat after me. You can unmute.
Yes, Lord.
Okay. Mitho yadasyam bhavida vivado
मिथो यदेषां भविता विवादो
Madhav Atmadam Amara Vilojananam
माधव आत्मदात्
Atmara
आम्रविलोचनाम्
Daisham Vadopaya Ithyanado Anyo
नेषां वदोपाय यानतो अन्यो
Mai Udhyade Andrandhrade Swayam Sma
मयि युध्यते अनंत तते स्वयं सम
Mithom Yadesham Bhavida Vivado
मिथो यदेषां भविता विवादो
Madhav Amadhatmrda Vilochananam.
Madhav Atmana Vilochananam.
Naisham Vadopaya Yan Adho Anyo.
Naisham Vadopaya Yanto Anyo.
Mayudhyade Andradhadade Swayam Sma.
Mayudate Anantadhayate Swayam Smaha.
Mitho Yadasham Bhavida Vivadho.
Mito Yada Yasham Bhavita Vivado.
Madhav Amadamra Vilochananam.
Madhav Amadatra Vilochananam.
Naisham Vadopaya Yam Adho Anyo.
Nesham Vadopayayam Atoyanyo.
Mayudhyade Antardadhade Swayam Sma.
Mayi Udyate Antardhayate Swayam Sama.
Synonyms, word by word meaning. Mitaha. Mitaha.
Mitaha.
One another.
One another.
Mitaha. Yada.
Yada.
When.
Yada. When.
Esham.
Esham.
Of them.
Of them.
Bhavida.
Bhavita.
Will take place.
Will take place.
Vivadaha.
Vivadaha.
Quarrel.
Quarrel.
Madhu Amada.
Madhu Amada.
Intoxication by drinking.
Intoxication by drinking.
Adamra Vilochananam.
Atamrama Vilochanam.
Of their eyes being copper red.
Of their eyes being copper red.
Na.
Na.
Not. Esham. Of them.
Of them.
Vada Upayaha.
Vada Upayaha.
Means of disappearance.
Means of disappearance.
Yan.
Like
this.
Ataha.
Besides this. Anyaha. Alternative. My. On my. Udhyade. Disappearance. Andha dadadhe. Will disappear. Swayam. Themselves. Ma. Certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Please repeat after me. When they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper, because of drinking madhu, they only will then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. Purport. The Lord and his associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. No one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of their natural death by the laws of nature. The only means, therefore, for their disappearance was to make show of a fight amongst themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to drinking. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for their fighting. Just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by family affection, and thus the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, so the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. The devotees and associates of the Lord are completely surrendered souls. Thus, they are transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see Him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize their individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord. And this cooperation of the devoted with the Lord makes a perfect scene of Lord's pastime. Yeah. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmidamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashta Bhudale Srimade Lokanath Swami Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashta Bhudale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Bajani Yesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshitarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Namo Shri Geshendriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Navurtatmane Om Nityananda Udindur Vasuda Pranavallabha Janava Jivita Padihi Krishna Prema Prada Prabhu Patmavadi Sudha Srimad Sajinandana Purva Jahabhavun Matta Jagatra Direkta Gaurya Kalevaraha Harihi Om Tatsat Hare Krishna. So thank you, dear devotees, for joining today. It's a very beautiful section, so this we can understand very clearly about the Lord's pastimes. The Leela is different from the human's activities of karma. So that's a very important understanding we should have. Sometimes we mix with Lord's pastimes and the karmic activities. So why Lord did that? Why Lord did this way? How can it possible? And this will have consequences because of these consequences that's happened. So we have always speculations. That's why the mental speculation is worse than anything else. So we should not mentally speculate. Rather, we should understand anything before we say or conclude very properly. So here in this verse, Uddhava is explaining to Mahatma Vidura about the disappearance pastimes of the Supreme Lord, or it's called the Musala Leela of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that, and also in Mahabharatam, it is mentioned that it's a Musala Leela, which is the disappearance pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So, as we know that the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna appears only one day of Brahma. That we all know that one day of Brahma is that's 1,000 yuga cycle. 1,000 yuga cycle span across almost like 8.64 billion years, right? 8.464 billion years. So Supreme Lord comes on that one day of Brahma. That means that in that 1 billion, it's 8.64 billion years. In that years, one day, 28th Manu cycle of the Lord Brahmas, right? 28th Manu cycle. And so Lord appears in that Manvantara and Vaivasvata Manvantara and appears, and then the Lord execute and exhibit his pastimes in so many wonderful ways. As we know that in the various scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Puranas all explain the Lord's appearance like this. And when Lord comes, and there is a beautiful pastimes. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, right? When Krishna says that when I appears, Manushim Tanumasudam, Param Bhava Ajanando, Mama Bhuta Maheshwara, right? Krishna says that when I come down into this material world, fools derides me. Fools derides me because of we don't understand this transcendental subject matter clearly. When we don't understand this transcendental subject matter or knowledge, or vidya. Vidya means the knowledge, right? When we don't have that knowledge, and then what happens? We start to speculate and then derides left and right and say that, oh, Lord cannot come as a human. Lords cannot take a form of a person. But think about that. Srimad Bhagavatam, that's why lack of knowledge, lack of understanding of the spiritual knowledge. The Supreme Lord appeared in various forms. And it is mentioned that the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can count the numbers of the sands on the shores of the ocean, but we cannot even count the numbers of the incarnations of the Supreme Lord in this world and all the other worlds, because the Lord always incarnate and expand himself in various forms. In one sense, it is mentioned that there are only two things. One is Krishna and everybody else is Krishna's. That means everything else belongs to Krishna. Everything else is Krishna's potency. Krishna's potency is expanded everywhere. And Krishna's will, Krishna's, in so many ways, there is an external energy of the Lord called the Bhagiranga Shakti. And there is internal potency of the Lord, Antaranga Shakti. All the spiritual realm, spiritual world is under the internal potency of the Lord, or that Yoga Maya controls it. And all the external energy, external world is under the control or external potency of the Lord is known as Mahamaya or Maya Shakti. And this Maya Shakti is or under the directions or under or taking care of that the Mahamaya, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. But everything is under the control of Krishna, as it's mentioned that Maya Dyakshena Prakrite Suyade Sacharacharam Hedu Nanena Kaundeya. I am the cause of all. I am the cause of all. Hedu Nanena Kaundeya Jagat Vibhari Vartade. So this way, all the scriptures proclaim this, the appearance and activities, and as it's also Bhagavad Gita mentioned, that is divine. Janma karmaja me divyam evam yovedi tattvadah tektva deha punarjanma naidimamedi. So Arjuna, my transcendental appearance and activities are divine. One who knows this upon leaving the body never comes back into this material world again and comes back to me, there is no doubt. So Krishna is revealing all this to Arjuna, that Krishna's appearance and activities are so divine. So we should always take these pastimes into that context of is divine. It is so sacred. It's divine, right? So here in this verse, Uddhava is explaining about the Krishna's disappearance pastimes or the Musala Leela. So we can see here how Krishna is also mentioning to Uddhava is mentioning to Vidura, when they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. This was also Uddhava is quoting the Supreme Lord is speaking the same subject matter. So let us see that Srila Prabhupada also mentioned the purport that the Supreme Lord's appearance and activity is not subject to the laws of material nature. What is the laws of material nature? Anybody remembers? The karma, right? We are all subject to go through the karma or the laws of the material nature. So we know that the Supreme Lord is and his associate and his all inhabitants, all the sons and the grandsons are all eternally liberated personalities, or called Nitya Siddhas. Nitya Siddhas. So nobody can kill or nobody can do anything with them unless the Supreme Lord's will. And Supreme Lord himself, if Supreme Lord wanted to come into this world, Supreme Lord doesn't need anybody's permission. Supreme Lord wanted to disappear from this world, Supreme Lord doesn't need anybody's permission, or there is a chances of fighting or anything. Krishna doesn't need any of those things. It all comes as on his will. It also goes as on his will. But there are some pastimes takes place around that. There are some pastimes takes around that play, that incident, so that people will see that, okay, it is not that just, it is, oh, Krishna is just, and this is all didn't happen. So all this incident takes place. That's also pastime, so that the pastimes are actually to increase the devotion to the Supreme Lord. to understanding the more about it, to give the joy to the devotees. Why there are sometimes people ask why Krishna wanted to do these pastimes. Krishna wanted to do the pastimes to give the joy and pleasure to his devotees. Just for example, when Krishna was fighting with Hiranya Aksha for 27, days, in the 27 days in the heavenly planets, not on the earthly planets that time. Krishna was really enjoying Asulas, and even Brahma, the demigods, everybody was seeing it, and how Krishna is fighting with Hiranyaksha, right? How Krishna is fighting with Hiranyaksha. So to give the joys. Then finally, Brahma has to remind Krishna that, oh Krishna, oh Lord, the night time is coming. It says that when night time comes, Asuras will get more strength. The daytime, they are not that much effective. When the nighttime comes, they will be so energetic. So we can see that, this Asuric world nowadays, the nighttime is so kind of like dances and the parties and so much abominable activities and all it happens on the nighttime. Why? Because of this demoniac nature is actually increases more in the night, and then daytime they kind of suppress, they sleep and get up late and so many things. So this is visible. So like that way we can understand that when Brahma says that the night time is coming, the demons will get more power. So then Krishna was enjoying as well. Krishna was also give. When Krishna pleases, the devotees pleases. When devotees pleases, Krishna pleases. Always remember this, dear devotees. When Krishna get pleased, the devotees are the one who gets pleased. When the devotees are pleased, Krishna is pleased, right? Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hidaya Jagatidaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Nama Namo Brahmanya Devaya. When the Brahmanas are pleased, Krishna is pleased. So always remember that devotees goes to the temple and they do beautiful sringar for the Lord. Then when they're seeing this beautiful sringar, the devotees are pleased. By doing this wonderful sringar for the Lord is also pleased. And then Lord is pleased, the devotees are pleased always. So Lord's pastimes, always remember this, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord exhibiting because of Krishna wanted to give pleasure to his devotees always. So then they are jubilant, as if like when you know that when there is an India and a Pakistan match, right? When there is an India and Pakistan match. So everybody was so in a cricket match. Everybody is so much in that. What would happen? 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 In its each and every moment is they're looking and that very much, stretch themselves in such a spirit. The moment India wants, so their joy, kind of explodes. It erupts their joy and they do so much. And similarly, dear devotees, so Krishna makes that kind of situation. It's like what would happen, that kind of very, curious, very curiosity. Like similarly, same example when the Hiranyaksha and the Lord was fighting, this was similarly. So when they fought each other, it was what would happen? What would happen? Like that, sometimes Hiranyaksha would take a lead and sometimes Krishna would take lead. They fight each other like that. So everybody else was looking and so curious, and anxiety. What would happen? What would happen? So when finally then Krishna kills Hiranyaksha, their joy, explodes. So similarly, all the pastimes also has a significance like this. When Krishna killed, Agasura, all the cowherd boys and devotees were looking at what would happen. What would happen? The moment they kill these asuras, they became so jubilant. They raise Krishna, they beat their drums and they dance. They would share their, food, prasadam to each other. They will run around and they laugh, they cry. So many things this happens. So when the pastimes occurs like this, dear devotees. So similarly, all the pastimes has the significance. So this gives the pleasure and the joy to his devotees. That's one reason that Krishna exhibit these pastimes. So now here in this verse, what is happening? So it is mentioned that the disappearances of the Supreme Lord and the relatives of the Supreme Lord, all the Yadu dynasty. So Yadu dynasties are not an ordinary personalities. They are the Nitya Siddhas, eternally liberated living entities, or the conditioned soul, eternally liberated souls. Not the conditioned souls are the living entities, but eternally liberated. This is known as Nitya Siddhas and the Nitya Baddhas. We are all living entities, are Nitya Baddhas, eternally conditioned because of laws of the material nature. But for them, there is no loss of the material nature, there is no karma, but they are acting as per the will of the Lord. So here in this case, we can see that all the Yadava dynasty will also disappear from this planet only by the will of the Lord. So in order to happen that will of the Lord, Krishna made a pastimes that there are three reasons that this disappearance will happen. So the scriptures mention that one is actually after the Kurukshetra war, we know that the entire Kauravas, Kurus, and all the whoever supported the Kauravas, everybody was destroyed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And none of the sons of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari left. Everybody died, even the kinsmen, even the relatives, the brothers of Gandhari, and even everybody. So then this time Krishna made a plan that, somehow the burden of that Kurukshetra war, Krishna is decided to reduce the burden of the earth, right? We see so that in the past, the last class. Also, Krishna was reminding that, there is also another burden, or that means, we understood that Krishna was making a plan for that, reduce that the population of the earth, so that this earth will, that there is a new yuga is going to come. So whenever there is a change of yuga, there is some process happens. That's why Yugandhyam Pralayam. Some process happens so that the earth will be more clean, and there is a new change. A change is going to come. When the change is imminent, that's the Lord's also the laws of nature. That's the will of the Lord. The changes happens in this world. There are also pastimes happens around that. So in order to do that, then Krishna went to Gandhari. So Gandhari was so desperate, so in much distress, in pain and separation from their child. Everybody's been killed. Gandhari was by nature, she was very much devoted to her husband. Because of that Padivradya, and she also had some kind of spiritual, some power. So then there was, Krishna came to Gandhari and paid the obeisances to Gandhari, is somewhere related. So Gandhari was become now paid the obeisances and offer the praise to Krishna and all those things, and asked this question: "Oh Krishna, you could do a stop to this war. Even from the childhood onwards, Kauravas, the Kurus, Duryodhana, Dushasana, all they were started enmity between Pandavas and Kauravas. They started all this from the beginning itself. And you are the Supreme Lord. You could have stopped everything. This is our, when we are when you don't have the devotion, love for the Lord, dear devotees, then we ask all these questions. So Krishna could have done this way, Krishna could have done that way, Krishna could have do this way. We could speculate like this. So Gandhari was also in the similar condition as mentioned to Krishna, that you could have avoided. And why? Because of Gandhari was also as that selfishness in her mind as well, like Dhritarashtra. That selfishness was there in her, in Dhritarashtra's mind like this, right? So because of out of that, so then Gandhari was mentioning that you should also, by the clans, here Pandavas and Kauravas were fighting each other. Similarly, your clans will also fight each other, and that will be the cause of the disappearance of all your relatives and the kinsmen. So Krishna accepted that. Krishna was smiled at Gandhari. So Krishna induced Gandhari to speak like this. So Krishna's pastime, this was also Krishna's pastimes. Then what happened? We know that there is a curse, right, by the sages. So then it's 636 years passed after this curse, and then so Krishna was determined. Kurukshetra war was over. Now it is the time to Krishna to return back to the Golok Vrindavan, right? Krishna to disappear from this material or the mortal world, right? So Krishna is always there. There is a two kinds of pastimes always happens for Krishna. One is, the direct or the manifested pastimes and unmanifested pastimes, right? So Krishna directly or indirectly, when there is a pastimes manifested, the Krishna, that's a pastime which is now happening. And there is also unmanifested pastimes. That's also always happens then in Krishna. Because of that, we don't see it because we are materially covered. Otherwise, when we are spiritually enlivened, then we can see that the pastimes of Krishna always happens with the devotees. That many times we know that the Villamangalam Thakur, Krishna appears, the Madhavendra Puri, Krishna appears in the different various forms, and Krishna appears these wonderful pastimes with all the devotees. In all the time, there is a pastimes Krishna exhibits with his devotees. There is no doubt into that. Sometimes we see that the devotees worship the deities, and deities also shows various wonderful pastimes with his devotees. So many wonderful pastimes have happened. It's called unmanifested pastimes. Directly or indirectly, there is a pastimes always happens. So we know that when the Kanada, sage Kanada, and then there is Narada Muni and Kanwa, right? All these sages came to Dwaraka. And also that time, Krishna induced the sons of Krishna like Samba and, leading them and all these other, the sons of, they made a plan and they made Samba as a pregnant woman and put something on the like in the on the stomach and belly and showed before them and came before the sages. They requested sages to predict that what kind of baby will be going to born, whether it is a male or female. So this was an offense against the great devotees of the Lord like Narada Dev and Kanwa and Kanada, like that. So they cursed the Samba and says that you will deliver an iron rod instead of male and female. So this all would happen, dear devotees. So we know that at the time of Lord Ramachandra also Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when the Lord Ramachandra's earthly pastimes was over, even the time personified, the Kala Purush, the time personified before the Lord Ramachandra and reminded them. Otherwise, the nature cannot act upon them. So nobody reminds us. The people are generally living in this world. Nobody reminds us. Only the devastation or the energy of this material nature comes upon us, like in the form of Kala or Yamadutas. They take us. Nobody reminds us, okay, this is the time you're going. No. But the Kala or the Yama or Kala Purusha or Yamada, they cannot act upon the Supreme Lord. They would come and remind the Lord. So similarly, when Lord Ramachandra was about to, or was time, came, and then Kala Purush also came before the Lord Ramachandra and reminded Lord Ramachandra it is time to return. So similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Advaita Acharya reminded Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now the time to return. And send a letter, Advaita Acharya sent a letter to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now everybody got the grains and the market now can be closed. That's indirectly hinting to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now there's time to return. So similarly, so these sages, or they will come and they would remind the Supreme Lord that it's time to return. So when the sages came before in Dwaraka, before the sons of Krishna, they acted like this. And then what happened? This Musala pastime is called that the sages cursed the Samba to deliver an iron rod. So in due course of time, Samba then delivered an iron rod. And then Ugrasena came to know that this is all happened. They said that, and then the sages cursed that this would be the cause of all your destruction. So this was the curse. This iron rod will be the curse of all your destruction. So they came to Ugrasena, and Ugrasena thought that, okay, what would do this? This is the case that this would be the cause of all the Yadu dynasty's destruction. So what they happened, Ugrasena mentioned that, rub it to the dust, and then rub completely this danda, this iron rod, and then so that it will not get effect. What happened? They rubbed this iron rod, and all this iron's dust came out from it. And then what happened? Then finally the last small piece, and they couldn't rub it anymore. right? They cannot reduce it anymore, rub it anymore. There was a small piece. Then what they did, all this dust of this iron rod, they throw it into the water. They put it into the water. So what happened? The waves of the water brought the dust of this iron and the rest of the iron, and this brought it to the shore of the ocean. And then it started to grow like a big, like a small, like a grass, like kusha grass kind of. This was so hard, and it has become so thick and hard like that. And then the little small piece was there, and I went underneath, and one fish is actually swallowed this little small piece of the iron rod. And then that fish is actually later caught by the net, and that fish went to a hunter. And then when he cut the fish and he got a small piece of this iron, and he used this to put it at the end of the arrow of his hunting. So this was the pastime was happened. So then what happened? Krishna now came to know that, understood that now it is time to return. So Krishna then retreated from the Dwaraka and went to Prabhasa Kshetra, and there she started to meditate upon the Supreme Lord. So then the hunter, it was a forest, it's a Prabhasa Kshetra, there was a forest under a tree, and this tree is still there, it is mentioned that. And then Krishna sat out there, and then Krishna was just moving his the thumb, then what happens, the lotus feet, the thumb, and then just moving. The hunter was actually going around, see that something is moving. He thought that some like animal. He just shoot that arrow. So this was the time then Krishna was about to leave, and before that Krishna requested Daruka. Daruka was the charioteer of Krishna. Bring the chariot, bring the chariot. So it is the time. So then Daruka brought the chariot down, and that was the time sage Maitreya was there. And then Krishna was also requested Uddhava to leave, and Maitreya was there. And then finally, in between, they meet each other, Uddhava and Maitreya. And Maitreya was there, and Maitreya was seeing this. And then chariot came down, and Krishna went into the chariot, and it is just simply like even Brahma, demigods, everybody come and seeing this one. It was about Krishna is living. But Brahma, demigods, everybody came into the horizon. And then what happened? Immediately, like a flash of second, even Brahma couldn't realize that Krishna is just disappeared. That Krishna just disappeared like that. So, but after Krishna's disappearance, what happens? So all these Yadavas also has to disappear from this world. So then what happened? One day, they kind of intoxicated each other. Like there were many clans of it. There is Vrishnis, there is Devakas, there is Yadavas, all these dynasties, they were all there. They were all this, the Yadu dynasty or the relatives of Krishna. They were all the various great personalities manifested on this earth in order to support in the pastimes of Krishna. Then what happened? They intoxicated and they started to make a quarrel each other. And then what happens? They were all tried to fight each other. So they grabbed this leaf, this kinds of grass, which was so hard in such a way that if he hit with someone, and this was all the Leela of Krishna. Otherwise, where it comes from a grass came out from the iron dust, right? It won't come out. So, but it was all the Leela. And this was so hard, they plucked all this, and they tried to fight each other, and they killed each other, yeah, one after another, one after another, one after another, right? And also there was another reason which was happened. This was also mentioned that in the scripture Vishnu Purana, that when there was Ashtavakra Muni cursed the Apsaras. So Apsaras means Ramba, Tilotama. There are many hundreds of the Apsaras were there. They were also one day passing through, and that time Ashtavakra Muni was meditating under the water, and they praised the Ashtavakra Muni there, the devotion, seeing this one, and Ashtavakra Muni became so pleased with the devotion and the praise of the Apsaras. So Ashtavakra Muni then blessed them with a husband, and it was their request that we should have a great personality to be their husband. So Ashtavakra Muni blessed with them. But then Ashtavakra Muni, when came out from the water, they saw that Ashtavakra means 8 parts of the body is kind of deformed. So they just started to laugh when Ashtavakra Muni came out from the water. Ashtavakra Muni became so offended and cursed that you would also become husbandless and then you will be also became the hands in the, will become the toys in the hands of barbarians, and will be, you will be lost in your own way. So this was also bound to happen. So that is the way that even Krishna left, that all the queens of Dwaraka, Arjuna was bringing them. That's the time these barbarians attacked even Arjuna. Arjuna couldn't, restrict them. Arjuna couldn't even stop them, and then couldn't protect well. And then, when Arjuna tried very well, but they defeated Arjuna, because of when Krishna departed from this world, Arjuna also now lost all the power. And also we know that the Pandavas then immediately heard that Krishna left this planet. They also went to the forest. They didn't even also stay back into the Hastinapuri to rule the kingdom. So all these are wonderful, wonderful pastimes called Mosala Leela. So this all happened like this. So the Krishna's appearance and activities are always divine to your devotees. So this was the way that Krishna also retrieved his pastimes from this earth. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here the Krishnas, the pastimes are transcendental. Transcendental. So we know that in the Kurukshetra war, right? So Krishna induced Arjuna so that to ask the questions, why should I do the war and all those things. Then what finally is manifested, the beautiful Bhagavad Gita instructions of the humanity of the world, that what we supposed to do, how we understand the Supreme Lord, that we got from the Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna wouldn't have asked this question, the Bhagavad Gita would not come out and all these instructions. So similarly, dear devotees, for everything there is a cause. Hedu nanena kaunteya. I am the cause of everything. Hetu nanena kaunteya jagat vibhari vartade. According to my superintendence, this all material world works. Similarly, Krishna's appearance and activities and the pastimes are so, so wonderful. We should always see that. And instead of questioning why it is that, why it is like this. So instead of that, we should always have that devotion, love for the Lord. And this hearing these pastimes of the Supreme Lord is also very divine, so that we can develop the love for the Supreme. That's one of the reasons this Bhagavatam also. The goal of Bhagavatam, hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord, is to develop the love for the Supreme Lord. So this is the way that we can understand these various wonderful pastimes. And all these devotees that which are associated with Krishna, they are all surrendered souls of Krishna. So Krishna would, as I mentioned, that Krishna would exhibit its pastimes to please the devotees. And devotees also always support and surrender to Krishna to please Krishna. So this always we should understand. There is an eternal relationship with Krishna and devotees. That's called our Nitya Siddha position, or eternal relationship, or eternal condition. Eternal condition, not the material condition, eternal spiritual. That's our eternal relationship, is that we are always belongs to that Supreme Lord. So always remember this. And by these pastimes of the Supreme Lord, it purifies us, it pleases the devotees, and it also pleases Krishna. So with this note, I would stop here. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for joining today. So let's see. Hare Krishna. Indra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sharad Prabhupada ki jai, Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Prabhuji, why? I know there was a sorry, Mataji.
No, go ahead. You finish.
Oh, okay. I know there was curse by
Gandhari.
Gandhari, right? Prabhuji, just one second. I think I'm recording, so it's echoing. Yes, Prabhuji. I know that there was a curse by Gandhari so that Krishna will destroy. I mean, they will quarrel and then they will destroy by themselves, right? Right. So why? So it happens in every avatar, whenever Krishna appears in every.
No, actually not in every avatar. There are different kinds of appearances of the Supreme Lord, right? There is we saw that Krishna has appearances of or expansions of Krishna called Manvantara avatar. Lord appears in the form of Yuga Avataras. Lord appears in the form of Purusha Avataras, like Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. There is Guna Avataras, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Zolves, Yuga Avataras. There is Shaktiyavesha Avataras, like, like various, like Lord Parshurama, there is Shaktiyavesha Avataras. So similarly, each Avataras has a purpose. And then Leela Avataras, this is part of Krishna, Leela Avataras, then that has to end, like just for a drama, right? We see the drama. So what happens? Drama has a beginning, drama has this peak, the very exciting, stage, and then after finally this concludes, like a novel. People write, what is the conclusion? So this is all kind of that Leela, that part of the Leela. So not necessarily that every incarnation should go through, like every incarnation has a specific function. Like just for an example, I was mentioning this Malsya Avadara. Malsya Avadara came to retrieve the Vedas and kill the demon, right? To retrieve the Veda, Malsya Avadaras came also to protect the Manu, the first Manu, right? The first Manu, that to protect him and to from the pralaya, from the flooding of the water. So Krishna, the form of Malsya, protected and pulled with the help of the rope of Vasuki, and pulled the ship and brought to the peak of the Himalayas. And then the water, the pralaya didn't affect. So it was all Krishna, the Krishna's incarnation of Malsya. Then Malsya would disappear like that. Then Kurma came, right? Kurma came, and in order to hold this Mandara mountain on the back of, that's a different, this is called specific function. Lord appears also to exhibit very specific functions of the various, for to fulfill the various other purpose, right? That's what it is. So there are innumerable incarnations like that. Leela Avataras, like we know that the Lord Ramachandra Bhagavan, it's a Leela Avatara of the Lord. And the Lord appeared, and then what happened finally? It's reminded. Then what happened? Then Lord Ram also went into the Sarayu and invited all the inhabitants of Ayodhya. They all went back to the original position, like Bharata and Shatrugna and Lakshman. And then in the case of even Musula Lila, when as soon as Lord left, and also Balaram also left, like just like that. Balaram is also went into the water and meditated upon the Supreme Lord and went like that. So every pastime has their own significance. It doesn't happen in every incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and depends on what kind of incarnation Lord is taking, and accordingly this. So every drama is not same, right?
Okay. Yes. Guruji, I understand, because it was mentioned in the text, like purport, that every time Lord comes, right, Lord appears, and then whenever he disappears, he comes with the associates, and then he goes back with the associates. So it was mentioned in the purport.
These are called eternally liberated. Yeah, eternally liberated or Siddhas. So Lord comes, and then also they disappears in the same manner that how Krishna disappears. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
No problem. Okay, Hare Krishna. So anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, that was pranam. You have cleared up so much. I have been thinking all the time wrong thing, because when we see TV serial, when you feel that, oh, how come Krishna's family is like this, the bad people, since why Krishna did not correct them, how Shama was got pregnant, and how that happened, never clear my mind. I never consider as a Leela. I was thinking, how can that happen, God's family like this?
Yeah.
So today you cleared up all the wrong thinking.
Yes, Prabhuji, that is true. True, Prabhuji. Whenever we see TV serials, like, we have different understanding. But when we read scriptures, then it clears up everything. I think TV serials are made for entertainment also. A little bit of entertainment.
It is made for entertainment, but they should clear it is a Leela or something. They should explain in between, or at the end of the show, this was a Leela, this was not. But they don't explain anything. So mundane people will understand, oh, God has a bad son. If I have, it's nothing wrong in it. They console themselves that way.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. They
Right.
compare the Lord with themselves. That's the problem. That's their misfortune. That's why, this world, everything is self-centric. And then they think that, okay, Lord is also like me. And Lord, I should not do. Lord should also like me. That,
Yes.
what I say, Lord should do. What I do, Lord should do. What I think, Lord should do. What I desire, Lord should provide. And this is the self-centric. That's the world is going. But on the devotees, they understand the Lord. They realize the Supreme Lord. They know the Supreme Lord. They always surrender the Supreme Lord, and they'll be always, always, always in loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. That's our eternal nature, and that's a Lord always there to such devotees. They protect such devotees. They always associate with such devotees, as mentioned that Lord there to exhibit these pastimes to please that such devotees, and then Lord also gets pleased when devotees gets pleased. All these wonderful, wonderful things happens around. Along with that.
Yes.
Even
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
when Krishna got killed by the Pardhi that shoots the arrow on Krishna, they say, oh, Krishna has to also pay the karma, so we have to pay our due to the karma.
Yeah.
People talks like that. Oh, he had to also suffer the consequence of the karma.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
But they don't understand this is a spiritual body. Krishna has a spiritual body.
Krishna's spiritual body, yes.
Yeah, people don't understand that point.
Yeah, that's what it is. Avajanadi mamudha manushim tani masrudam param bhava janando mama bodha maheshwar. Avajanadi mamudha. When I descend myself as Krishna's as spiritual body, then when I descend myself, fools derides me. They do not know me that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of all that being. Param bhava janando mama bodha maheshwaram. I am beyond this material nature. So that Krishna is very clearly revealing all this, and they don't understand this. They say, no. Anyway, so it's good to clear these all the doubts, and that's one reason that it's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. We will stop here today's class. Vancha kalpatarupasya padidana pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnavanda ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda Gaudiya Vaishnavanda ki jai. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Hari.